When she saw the messages on her husband's phone, the wife decided to visit his mistress. But when she opened the door, she couldn't believe her eyes. Sophie started a strange conversation a few days before Christmas, when her unsuspecting husband returned from work. "Ethan, a woman has been calling you. Don't you want to tell me anything?" asked the woman, emphasizing the last sentence. "What do I have to do with it? She probably called the wrong number." "Let it go. There's nothing weird about it," replied the man, doing his best to sound casual and calm. She sighed in relief, although she felt her husband was not totally honest with her. Lately, Ethan was acting in a very strange way. The husband, without any explanation, simply started arriving late from work and even put a password on his phone. Sophie, who had lived with the man for about 9 years, knew him like the back of her hand and of course knew how to recognize when he was lying. The woman was also worried about her daughter, Kristen, who had recently completed 8 years of age. The marriage went through different stages. Sometimes they argued and didn't speak to each other for hours. After that, they would always reconcile, and they didn't hold a grudge. But for her, now was the last time. She looked at her husband in a different way, not only with her, but with her family. Sophie's work friends agreed that it was very likely that her husband was cheating. "No, I don't think so. Ethan is not like that. He's just going through a difficult time at work. Stress and exhaustion, for sure," said Sophie, doubting in her heart about the sincerity of her words. But when Ethan, under various pretexts, stopped spending the night at home, the woman realized that there was some truth in her friend's words. Deep inside, she knew she was not ready for an imminent divorce. She believed that in the worst-case scenario, Ethan would leave the family for a week, and in that period he would be with another woman. At the same time, Sophie would make a big scene out of jealousy, and when her husband returned, she would forgive him, and everything would go back to normal. She knew she needed concrete proof to prove her husband's infidelity, so she started going through his phone calls and messages, but she found nothing. At that moment, the woman was impressed with the job that was done in the phone's memory. Almost everything was deleted, and she couldn't find anything on it. "I'm sure this is all very strange. Ethan is hiding something from me," she thought. To find out who Ethan communicated with on a regular basis, Sophie asked the phone operator to print out phone calls and messages. In order to do this, she asked an old friend who she went to school with. The friend worked as a mobile network operator and had access to databases of customers. So when she found the number she was looking for, she called it right away. It was obvious that a woman would answer the phone, and it did not surprise Sophie, who had prepared internally for that moment. But despite that, the woman had to make a great effort to contain her emotions and arrange a meeting with the stranger. She arrived at the address the mistress gave her, with her heart racing and legs weakening. When Sophie approached the door, she thought for a second, and then rang the doorbell. She had to wait at least 2 minutes before someone finally opened for her. The guest's look of surprise when a woman in a wheelchair opened the door was incredible. "Is this really Ethan's lover?" she thought, examining the woman from head to toe. The silent scene lasted several seconds before the stranger said, "Are you going to stay there, or are you going to come in?" Throwing Sophie a hostile look, the woman in the wheelchair looked several years older, which left her even more confused. "Before entering, I would like to know what is the relationship you have with my husband." The unknown woman smiled and said, "My name is Julie. Ethan and I love each other, and we intend to live together, and I'm also expecting his child. Don't you think I'll always be in a wheelchair? This is just a temporary injury. I fell down the stairs when I slipped on the ice outside," replied the woman, looking defiantly into the guest's eyes. After these words, Sophie's stomach shrank and her hands shook. Not knowing what else to say, she just said goodbye, and with shaky legs, she went home. Now the woman understood everything. Ethan fooled me, but what did I do to him? She thought, while she started tearing up. Now that everything was clear, the woman had to talk to her husband, who was still acting like nothing was happening. Ethan, do you have something to tell me? Are you really hiding another family, or am I crazy? She asked, wanting to settle everything at once. Why would I say anything about this? Yes, I love another woman and I'm a free man. I have the right to do what I want, answered the man. What about Kristen, your daughter? Have you thought about that? How is she going to live with that now? Exclaimed Sophie, having difficulties to contain the tears. I will help you in any way possible. When she grows up, she will understand everything, replied the cheater, and began to gather his things with the intention of living with Julie. For the first time in 9 years of marriage, Sophie realized that she could no longer keep her husband, who decided to go another way. He left the family that night, leaving the place with a suitcase that had everything that was necessary. The betrayed wife saw a certain triumph expression on his face, as if he felt superior for humiliating his wife. The unfortunate woman cried until next day, cursing fate for making her meet Ethan, who turned out to be a womanizer and a liar. Now the days have become long for her, full of pain and regret for the wasted years with Ethan. Time passed quickly, and 3 months after the separation, she suddenly realized that her body started to change. At first, the woman thought that it was a simple hormonal failure, but when they gave her a pregnancy test, the 2 strips became colored, making it clear that she would be a mother again. Unfortunately, when the woman broke up with Ethan, she didn't know she had a baby with her. And what am I supposed to do now? She thought, wiping her tears. Finally, after thinking a lot, the woman decided to go see Ethan and tell him everything. After all, we are not strangers, and we are adults. We have to decide what to do, she said, examining her reflection in the mirror. Excited by this idea, the woman left to go to Julie's house as quickly as she could. But when Ethan opened the door, and with a look of disgust, he asked about the purpose of her visit, Sophie's spirit of hope instantly subsided. Well, what do you want from me? I don't mind helping the child as long as it's mine. Of course, in that case, when you give birth, I want a paternity test to confirm it's mine. Now I'm sorry, but I don't have time, and I have a lot of work today, said Ethan after hearing his ex-wife's story. The pregnant woman was crying and looking at the door as it closed in her face. The unhappy woman did not expect such an attitude from her ex-husband, who left her to the mercy of fate, along with her daughter and her unborn son. The first thing the woman did was throw away the photos of her ex-husband in the trash to erase any memory she had. Of course, the situation was not easy, but on the other hand, she knew it was impossible to do otherwise. It is hard to imagine what this abandoned woman had to go through to regain her peace and confidence back. The remaining 6 months until Labor Day passed by quickly. Sophie didn't even have time to recover mentally, and when she was already the mother of 2 children, Kristen and Jacob, her newborn, the joy of motherhood favorably influenced the state of her life. The divorcee decided to dedicate her life to her children. One day, when she was returning from a morning walk with Jacob, she noticed a familiar silhouette at the door of her house. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" asked the surprised woman with the baby in the stroller. "We have to talk about something. I'm ready to go back home," said the man, looking for some pity in his ex-wife's eyes. Immediately, Sophie gave a sarcastic laugh, leaving Ethan confused. "Come home? This is not your home from the moment you left. Forget our relationship that no longer exists. You made a decision, and I accept it. Now, what's wrong?" said Sophie in an indifferent tone and opened the front door. "Wait, you can't do that to me," exclaimed Ethan. "Not only I can, as I already did," replied the woman, slamming the door in her ex-husband's face. In the end, Julie, the mistress, cheated on her naive husband, pretending to have a back injury and going to the hospital to check it. But she had no problem at all. She did it to have secret encounters with another man. Her son wasn't even Ethan's, but from this man she cheated on him with. He discovered that after requesting a paternity test. After that, once everything was discovered, Ethan stayed at the door and was not able to realize that a few seconds before, he had lost his last chance to start over. He went to the bus stop with the intention of escaping the city in which he had destroyed his personal life. On the other hand, Sophie married a good man who brought her real happiness, and now she has the loving family she had always dreamed of. If you know any similar stories, write about it in the comments. Like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more fantastic stories.